How have you used golf to help you build the business?
There's a ton of opportunity. It's nice that, the golf course doubles as a boardroom, but also, fun for us.
Welcome to the Fairways to Fortune podcast. I'm your host, Joe Canfield. I'm sitting down here with Tanner and Cayden Giles here, and I'm excited for this episode. Co-founders of Wedge Golf Co, and you're breaking up some norms here for us, and so I'm really excited to jump into some of these conversations and something new today. We're streaming this live to Golf Live, so welcome everybody who's tuned in from Golf Live. Excited to have you here and to get this while it's happening. But anyway, welcome guys to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're glad to be here.
Yeah, so we work together, and it's awesome having you guys work as a creative agency. And today I want to talk about how you guys got into starting this. And it's not very many people that are doing what they love for work, right? And so you guys are breaking that up. And the other thing that you're breaking up is you're working with family too. So I want to jump into that and get a little bit of insight in the dynamic and how that all works. But let's start by chatting just kind of the founding of Wedge Golf Co and a little bit about what you do and where you started and then where you are now.
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll take that. So getting this thing started, it was kind of interesting. We didn't plan for it or anything. This wasn't always the goal. We haven't baked this up since we were kids or anything like that. The short part of the story is it came.
It's a long story.
It's a long story, but it came from COVID, really. And so we had studied advertising at BYU, Cayden, myself, and Dane, who started it, and kind of these lofty goals of these places where we wanted to work and where we wanted to land. And we wanted certain types of projects, that we wanted to work on. And graduating kind of in the height of COVID, those opportunities weren't there.
Sure.
We lost internships during that.
Yeah.
Offers went away, all of that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of a tough time because we had gone through school, these many years of school, with these ideas in our heads of where we were going to land and what we were going to do with the time.
And you're talking like big marketing agencies.
Yeah, they kind of breed you to.
You want to go down to LA?
Yeah, LA, Chicago, New York.
Yeah.
Work in the biggest agencies in the world, and the advertising program at BYU is nationally recognized. It's a really good program.
We were lucky enough to be able in school to work with huge companies.
Yeah.
Straight up, one of the first projects I worked on legitimately after getting accepted in the program was with Amazon.
Yeah.
Directly.
Very cool. Yeah, they do some cool stuff. They've done Super Bowl ads. Torino's a few years ago.
Well, they're one of the biggest companies in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I got to work with them, which was
really
insane, from the very beginning. So that's where I started. You can imagine where I thought I was going to go from there. Graduated during COVID. Cayden was a year behind us, so he was basically in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And when we graduated, we were supposed to capstone with a big agency on a real-world project that they're working on. Nobody wanted to work with us, understandably. They were trying to keep their own employees employed.
Yeah.
And so our professor was like, this has never happened before. I don't know what to do. It's just so short notice for them as well. And they were like, hey, just do a passion project with the skills you've learned. That's what it ended up culminating to. And we obviously learned some storytelling techniques and filmmaking and, have some other passions outside of just ad already. And so myself and Dane ended up shooting a golf-centered documentary at Palisade in central Utah because we both like golf. That's how him and I got connected in the program. That was something that we shared. And so we did that project and kind of gained an insight through that project of golf marketing, being able to use our skills in the golf space specifically. And at the same time, golf blew up due to COVID.
Sure.
Right? So it was kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah.
And very quickly into the process of starting Wedge, in its infancy, Cayden had some skill sets that we didn't have in-house.
His little brother needed a job or?
No, he was still in school.
Begging for it.
He was he was doing well, actually. He was in school and working professionally, and he was doing fine, but we legit needed his skill set. And so I said to the guys, I was like, hey, let's bring him in to help because we need to get this thing. At the beginning, we'd say yes to everything. You know what I mean?
Right.
Can you do this? And we're like, of course, we've done it.
Money will do it. Sure.
Haven't.
No, not only for money.
No, all right.
Yeah, right. Back work. Yeah.
We can do that. We've done that before. Haven't. And so we just figure it out, being scrappy, right? And so that's when Cayden got involved, again, really, really early on and has been there ever since. And now we're at where we're at now. We've been doing it just a little over 3 years now.
Awesome.
We've been in it, lucky enough to be in it full time
for the last year. Dane was the first one to come full time. The rest of us were working, full-time jobs and then doing this on the side. And then it was probably
quick. When it went,
6 to 8 months after Dane, I came on full-time after that. And then shortly after, Tanner was next. So
the workload got to a certain point, which is great, and that was the goal. That's what we wanted to do. So we've been lucky enough to be doing this for 3 years and all working full-time in it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's very cool. That's awesome. Well, let's rewind a little bit too, and let's get into why golf. I mean, how do you guys get into golf? I know that you kind of grew up the same way I did, had a dad that was into it, and have been playing your whole lives, but take me through that a little bit and just explain to me why golf and why that's a passion for you guys.
Yeah. So our dad, huge golfer, right? So we're from Heber City. Obviously, you're from Heber as well.
Not from originally,
right? But live up there now.
I've been there long now. I've been there long enough. I can say I'm from Heber.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. But yeah, our dad was just really big into it, and funny enough, he was kind of the only one in his family that really got into it. He got into it big in college, and then as we were growing up, we watched him doing it, and it wasn't until I think I was about 7 or 8, and Tanner was probably 10 or 11-ish,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
That he started putting us kind of in, the county programs and things that, they do lessons at Homestead, and you'd go there every Saturday for 6 weeks or something. And that's just kind of slowly how it built. And honestly, for us, I think I speak for Tanner too, but like basketball was our first and biggest love.
Basketball was cooler. Like, golf's cool now, and we can talk about that. But like, what was it? We had been early 2000, mid 2000s, more or less.
It was funny because we were actually on a podcast earlier with another contact of ours, and he plays professional basketball overseas, and we're talking about growing up loving basketball and all that, and he's 6'9", actually a very good basketball player. Obviously, he plays professionally, but we all shared the same ideas when we were younger that we would grow up and go to the NBA. Like that's naturally what happens when you love basketball, right?
Yeah. Well, and basketball was crazy that time. Utah, John Stockton, Karl Malone, right? Yeah. That was a big deal here.
Yeah. So again, going back, basketball was kind of the biggest thing, and then it wasn't until I would say probably high school or going into high school that high school tryouts were coming up.
It got more serious. We grew up playing with family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so, especially as a kid and learning the game, it's a frustrating enough sport as it is, where we weren't always keeping score. I mean, we were just trying to get consistent, right? And so I remember, at least from my part, Cayden was 2 years younger than me. My first golf tryout I had, and this was, again, kids, at least, most of the kids I knew, the golf team wasn't cool. It wasn't a thing that everybody was doing. It was still,
you didn't want to be known as
it was still pretty niche, right?
Yeah,
and it wasn't cool. And so I knew all the other kids that played golf. They knew me, that type of thing. And I thought I'd just walk on and make that thing. And I'm like, I've been golfing for years, all this stuff. I had never played in a competitive environment in my life.
Yeah, it's a different beast, right?
It's completely different.
You got to count everything.
And that's part of it. And then just the whole mental part of it, right? And something was on the line, right? And so when I went to my tryouts freshman year, I was so ill prepared. I had the skill set. I could play, but not in a competitive environment. And I absolutely blew it my first year. And I was like, okay, well, going into my sophomore year, things will be different. I'll practice more this year. And so I practiced more that year. But again, no competitive play.
Yeah.
And I went again my sophomore year, and I did the exact same thing. And then that year, and I was better that year than my freshman year even. Yeah. And my dad was upset with me because he was like, what are you doing? What are you shooting?
What
did I tell you? What are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, Dad. It's freaky when I get there. You know what I mean? They're watching me and this and that and whatever. And he's like, we need to get you into some competitive golf. And so that summer I played UJGA. Got some tournaments under my belt. Cayden played at the same time. Again, 2 years younger though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we started to get that competitive play in, and then next 2 years I was good.
That's awesome. That's so cool to have a brother that can go through that with you, because I've got 3 little kids, boy and 2 girls, and my son's starting to get to the point where it's okay, maybe we start getting him into some tournament play and things like that with golf. But if I could take the other kids with me, it's sweet, 2 things done at once. So that's awesome. And I'm sure your parents really appreciated
that. Especially that first year for sure. We played in all the same tournaments.
Yeah.
So he's young, and we were close enough in age that we would play together.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I was almost always, we were all paired together all the time. We played a ton of tournaments together.
Yeah, I mean, it just depended on the flights, obviously, but yeah, there was a few that we played together.
Yeah, and so it was kind of
that has its own dynamic too. When you're used to playing for fun with each other, and then you're playing in a competitive landscape against each other, and then you know each other's frustrations, and then it's just kind of.
I thought it was nice personally. Like I felt like I had a teammate or somebody there instead of just like all these random kids I've never met before. So it was a nice way to ease into it. Yeah, at least for me.
Yeah, I played with a cousin that's my same age and kind of had the same experience, and it is nice to have someone you know. But then the weird competitiveness is weird. But that kind of brings me to the next point: is you guys are brothers, you work together. Mm-hmm. You always hear don't work with family. Mm-hmm. What's that dynamic like in the office, and how do you guys? Because I'm sure things come up. Like it's business. It's things come up. There's hard conversations that have to happen. Yeah. How has that been being brothers and family? And do you have any fun stories that are? Maybe you butted heads a couple times.
I mean, from my experience, I can definitely say in the time that we've been doing this, it's gotten better, I would say. We've learned as we've done it. It does get hard sometimes to draw the line because sometimes emotion comes into it, right?
Yeah,
and like we work in a creative space. Yeah. And so creative people are a little bit naturally kind of emotional.
Subjective. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so... And, we found this in school, too, is like sometimes you have an assignment or whatever, and you have what you think is a great idea, and you share it with everybody, and like there's like no energy behind it from anybody else. It's hard not to take that personally. Right. So I think it's gotten better. It's never been bad.
Sure.
Luckily.
Yeah, I mean, we've had disagreements and things like that, but our mom is always like super worried about it.
Some backstory. So our parents... run the UPS store up in Heber City, and they have for years.
Yeah. Thanks for taking all my Amazon returns.
Exactly. Yeah. And mom always had the rule she doesn't hire family, so that's always been a thing.
Sure.
There. I mean, we worked there, but we're the kids. You know what I mean? But like, it was always a very like I don't work with. It's just to safeguard yourself, right? Yeah. And so when we got into it, she from the very beginning was like, "Are you sure you want to?"
Yeah, she's always worried that like something's gonna happen and we're like never gonna speak to each other again. But it's funny because like I was saying, there's definitely been some disagreements. I wouldn't say it's ever got to the point where like we haven't spoken to each other, haven't been friendly with each other. I think we've done a really good job of recognizing that like work is work and family's family, and obviously sometimes there's crossover there. But I think we just honestly enjoy what we do so much that like there's not a whole lot of arguing going on.
Yeah.
Luckily, right? And I think kind of the parallel that is interesting with golf is, Tanner can attest to this, but like when I was younger, I was like the most impatient person ever. I
straight up, so he's 2 years younger than me, right? I got some of my friends into golf in high school that still play now. We had to get our friends into golf.
Yeah,
nobody else was golfing.
Else was doing it.
Yeah. And so they would come out with me, and early on in high school, I had friends that didn't want to go if he was going.
Yeah.
Because he'd get fired.
Throw clubs and...
Because my whole thing is right up. I've always been able to hit the ball far.
Yeah.
But like...
Never straight.
Never. Well...
Or consistent.
Consistency was the issue, right? And like when I think that's the most frustrating thing about golf, at least in my opinion, is when you know your ability but can't play to that.
Sure.
It's extremely infuriating.
Yeah.
And so growing up, I was always hitting it further. Like I could outdrive my dad when I was like 14, 15, 16.
Right.
And like that, builds confidence in you, but then you like flub an iron shot and you're like, man, I suck at
what's
game.
It all for?
Shake a wedge.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
But where I was going with that is just the parallels between golf and I think life, but business specifically is like, if I had the mindset in golf that I have now when I was in high school, like I was a much better player, like technically in high school. But if I had like the mindset I have now and the calmness and at least the ability to think through, I hit that one out of bounds, like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
That growth has been awesome to see in the game. And I think since starting Wedge and starting working together, like that has also grown, right? Like it's less selfish. It's less, I want this, you want this or that, it's just grown to a place where like it's more mature and you're a little bit more level-headed in thinking through those things.
Yeah. Comes with age, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was the same way in high school. I was a hothead. I played hockey, which was way better outlet than golf for the anger, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately, we couldn't fight, but, you could get a
you can drop the
there. You can drop
You can blur the lines.
Been kicked out of a few men's league games here and there, but, whatever. That's awesome. That's a very cool story to share with us. So this is our podcast. We talk a lot about, how people have used golf to build their businesses, and you guys are obviously unique since golf is your business.
Yeah.
But how have you used the golf course to maybe find some clients or do things beyond just the creative side of things? Because I know you're out shooting all the time, but how have you used golf to help you build the business?
I mean, yeah, kind of to your point, like it's unique that everything we do revolves around golf. I think the frustrating thing is that doesn't mean always playing golf.
Right.
And it's something that we always talk about, that like I've never spent more time on the golf course, but played less in my life.
Sure.
And so whenever we do get to play golf, it's usually for like, client meetings or talking about business or just for fun. And so it is more of that enjoyable aspect, that playing golf is not our job, unfortunately. Like, the only way to do that is obviously be pro, but it's nice that, the golf course doubles as a boardroom, but also, fun for us. So.
Yeah.
Golf's been the most interesting thing for me with this is we started to realize how small the golf space is at the end of the day. And when we first started this, we had no portfolio. I couldn't go to any golf company and be like, hey, hire us, because we had nothing to show. And so when we started, we just did spec work, right? And so we were just reaching out to companies on social media, primarily, DMing them, being like, hey, send us some stuff. We'll shoot some stuff free. Use it if you want, whatever. Are you interested? And we got, we were fortunate enough to have some companies be like, yeah, that sounds cool. And so they would send us whatever we would need to make something for them. And we would send it back. So obviously that started to become some like portfolio pieces, and we were posting about it on our social channels. Not always saying it was spec work, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working for whoever,
whatever, right? Like just starting out. And after a little bit of time and sharing some content and stuff like that, like we started to have some brands reach out to us and want to pay,
Yeah.
Do this for us too. We want this. This is what we're looking for. And I never knew it was so connected. I also didn't know that it was so accessible. Like with social media, for example, like we can be in anybody's inbox.
Yeah.
Obviously, like having a portfolio now, having a certain follower count, like certain things that we've been able to build to and do help people actually read the
built your own
messages.
reputation, right?
Yeah, which is we've been really fortunate to do. But it's just been eye-opening for me to, I would used to kind of look at it and be like, oh, I wish I could work with them or this or that or do this kind of work or that kind of work. And then the shift has kind of been like, just ask, just talk. And it's been kind of interesting to me to see the response. But also, if you know somebody, they know somebody, and they know, you're never more than like 4 connections away from anybody, especially in this space. That's been kind of eye-opening for me. Some connections we've obviously made on the golf course. A lot of them we've made off the course too. But that shared like passion and understanding of the game is what allows us to talk, right? Sure. And total strangers, never met face to face, but like, oh, like you're passionate about this, so am I. We can be friends. Has been, wow, it's been incredible.
Yeah, I think because golf is a common thread between a lot of people these days, like we fit into that perfectly because we are that, And so I feel like there's really no conversation on or off the course that has to do with golf that we can't be involved in, and so it's just a great connector for us.
Yeah, cool. We've had some cool stories along the way, which is interesting.
Well, we first met at a simulator bay. We went out and we hit some balls around, and you got to see me play, which like this guy really coaches golf. I'm sure going through the back of your mind, but
spanking it past me, absolutely wrecking me.
This is just that's the one cardinal sin: don't swing in front of your students. I usually am pretty good about that, but you kind of touched on it a little bit about, golf was a passion, something that you love, but doing it for work is very, very different, right?
It's 100% different.
And one of the first things I asked you guys was like, have you fallen out of love with actually playing golf because you're around it so often? And I remembered the answer you guys gave me, and I want you to kind of go through that a little bit with me here.
Yeah. I mean, speaking for myself, obviously, like we said in high school, like I loved golf in high school. Golf and basketball were kind of my 2 big things. I would say that like this year specifically, for whatever reason, like I have fallen in love with golf again. And I think it's because I've tried to play a lot more. But I think being around it, like you're just so integrated with like what's happening, who's who in the world, And so for me specifically this year, I don't know what it is, but like I have this newfound passion to play more and to just be around the game more. So that's at least my take this year.
Yeah, I think we've made, as individuals, Dane, Cayden, and myself, the last couple of years we haven't, like Cayden said, like legitimately we've been on the course, not a time more in our life that we've been on the course more, but have played less, like 110%.
Yeah, and like to paint a picture, it's like 4, 5, 6 hour day shoots on a course, and we don't touch a club.
Right.
Like,
and other people are
it's
hitting.
torture. It was
You're
torture.
there like, oh man, I need to hit one of that.
Yeah.
And you go to some really cool golf too.
Incredible place.
Yeah. I mean, we were last October doing a project with Mizuno out in Georgia, and sitting there behind a camera watching tour pros hit balls for hours on end for 3 straight days.
And they make it look easy. So
No,
you think
sure.
you can get it, you're like, oh, I know. Yeah, let me show you some. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you just kind of want to go grab a wedge and then shank one right in front of them. And
Right. You got Roy McAvoy.
Yeah.
Just shoot it down the line.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of taken its toll a little bit on us, at least like the first 2 years. We're like, man, like we were hungry again for it because we're like, we're here all the time. And then I think I've talked with Dane about this too. I don't know if I've talked as much with you about it, but like there's a certain pressure there to, like, with the industry that we're in and what we do, to play it to a certain level.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
You know, and it's hard to do when you're not playing or practicing.
Yeah. So I go out to South Carolina every year, and I have a coach out there, and I'm hoping that, one day I'll have him on this podcast because he's been a mentor to me. But he says the same thing, because we go out there and play, and like we were playing the Kiowa Ocean course, and he junior toppered 3 drives off the first tee.
wow.
Really?
And we're watching that going like, oh my gosh. But he's got a son that's getting in the game. He's being recruited by SEC schools. He coaches a college team, and he's like, I work on everybody else's golf game except my own.
Except his. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he says that, and I'm sure you guys are in the same position. You're sitting out there watching tour pros swing it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, like I need to get out and practice. But
And it's hard to do when you're shooting on weekends and you're doing things like that.
Yeah.
So we've all made kind of more of a conscious effort to set the time aside to do to play and do what we want to do and work on our games, because in high school, like, you go to practice every day, you're playing all the time, like, it's easy. It's there for you. That's what you do. And then obviously, growing up, going through the different stages of life, like, probably shouldn't be playing every day. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to advocate and say that that's, woe is us because we don't get to do that. But you have to be more intentional with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's harder to do. And so making that decision has been something recently that I kind of think rejuvenated a lot of us, which has been a lot of fun. We've recently finally, after years and years and years, updated some equipment, which also makes it kind of fun getting into that whole side of it. And then from my side specifically, as I mentioned before, I got some of my friends into it in high school. A lot of them have continued it, which has been really cool. And then even in college, I've gotten some friends into it and stuff. And some of those guys that had never played before ever are so much deeper and farther into it than I am now, because they've just like completely fallen in love with it. So I've been lucky enough to create a group of people that will invite me to go. And so I don't always have to be the one to go, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Which I need to put a little bit more work in with my friends, because there's like very few of them that play. But just to cap off kind of what he was saying, is just like, we've been making this conscious effort, and it's been cool to see. And I mean, you're very well ingrained in the networking space here, but like networking through golf in Utah, like this year specifically is exploding too. And as we're kind of changing, what we do as a business, it's been just so natural to be like, hey, let's go, hit a tee time and
it's been fun to. We have an event that we run every year that's ours, and then we get invited to events too, and there's always more popping up, it feels like, and really cool ideas and really cool people getting involved, and it feels like there's a ton of opportunity, and there's only opportunity there because people are wanting it and asking for it, and there's demand for it, which I think is awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah, I want to get into the long day challenge, but first, you mentioned there's a certain pressure to play to a certain level, right? And I think anytime you're out on a golf course, there is that pressure, and which is why I've structured the coaching the way I have, where it's half swing instruction, half talking through etiquette, and those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And getting people to a level. I was just working with a guy yesterday. He's a banker. We went and played 9 holes. He found out I coach, and he's like, yeah, I need to come see you. Let's work on it. He texted me this morning. He's like, hey, it's already working. This is fantastic. He He's like, I'm taking clients out later this week. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Exactly.
And it's easy to do that.
They need to feel comfortable if they're going to open themselves up to the whole networking portion.
Right. And you don't need to be a scratch player, but consistent and be able to get a ball in the hole.
You don't want to be a detriment.
Play like a double bogey golf and you're good to go, right? And you guys have a couple of things that help out with that. Dane and I chatted a little bit about it on another episode about Scratch Golf Lab.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the complete opposite end of these beginners, you guys have the Long Day Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people that are like golf nuts, right? Tell me a little bit about Long Day Challenge and just set it up and the format of it.
Yeah. I can give some of the history of it if you want to kind of give the format. So our dad, like we said initially, is always been a big golfer, and there was a period of time in his career where he was the director of the Chamber of Commerce for Heber City.
Okay.
And during that time, he concepted this tournament format or this tournament idea.
It was initially to boost tourism.
Yeah, boost tourism for the city of Heber.
Which 90 holes of beautiful golf.
Yeah.
Hard to find a better place. Right?
Yeah, so
exactly.
So he essentially concepted this idea. It's 36 teams that play, it's 72 teams playing 36 holes all in one day, which is the Long Day Challenge is the name of it, and it's meant to be played on the Saturday closest to the longest day of the year or the summer solstice. Right. So anyways, our dad kind of came up with that idea like 13, 14 years ago now.
He ran it for a handful of years while he was there.
Sure.
And then as we started Wedge, he was long gone from the chamber by then. As we were starting Wedge, he owned all the intellectual property of the tournament and everything. Sure. And so he was like, here, gave it to us, said, go ahead.
Right when we started kind of early on, we knew we wanted to do a tournament as a vessel to market ourselves. Because again, like I mentioned, we were reaching out to companies on social media, all that kind of stuff. Like we were scrappy getting started. Nobody knew who we were.
Yeah.
Right?
A marketing agency running a golf tournament's not really, and a competitive one at that. It's not like a scramble, like, hey, come out and meet people, right?
Yeah. And so the first year, because we talked about like, we should get sponsorships is a whole other thing, right? And levels of sponsorships and what's included and stuff. And we are always like, no, there's not going to be we are going to be the presenting sponsor. Mm-hmm. We're not going to sell that. The whole idea at the beginning was use this event to market ourselves. It was a great way to create some content, obviously, right, that we can share, but also to let the players know who we were, but also let other businesses and sponsors know who we were.
Right.
That was the reason that we wanted to make it a Wedge property to begin with.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyways, 13 years later, our dad passed it off to us and said, do what you want with it. And we're now on the third year running it. And it's kind of Tanner's baby. He kind of heads that up every year. And it's been fun so far, but I'll let him talk about it.
It's been a lot of fun. So there's that legacy there for Cayden and I specifically, which was awesome. We didn't have to concept something new or anything. We saw what our dad did. We saw how popular it was during the time. And so the value was there, right?
To what you said earlier, right? It's for golf nuts. It's for people that love it because
36 holes is a lot.
And it's
it's
long. It's a lot of holes, but it's also a handicapped event. And so, it's teams, it's 4-man teams. And you can't have anyone higher than a 24 handicap on your team. Okay. And the spread between the worst and best player can't be more than 15 points in the handicap. And so it's a very, regulated event.
A
lot of it is obviously to keep it competitive. There's things in there to keep pace of play going. Right. There's a reason we do it on the date that we do it is we need that daylight. We need all that time to fit it all in a day. It goes from the guys usually tee off a little bit before 6 a.m. and usually finish somewhere around 9.
Wow.
Yeah, last year. So it's 36 holes, right? But then the top 10 teams go into a hole-by-hole derby.
Okay.
And it's, get eliminated as they go. And last year we ended, I think, right before 9:30.
Yeah, it was that derby. Was all day. It was all day last year, which is an absolute blast. Yeah. And then another fun thing that the players are able to do is that you're guaranteed 36. You're guaranteed 36, swag bag, all that stuff, all that cool stuff that comes with it. 3 meals with a steak dinner at the end. You finish last, you get all that stuff, right? And then the top 10 teams from that 36 continue on, and then you can go watch them too. Yeah. And so we usually get a gallery like 100 people out there following them. And we've heard some of the coolest things. We've heard guys that play like D1 golf and, competitive golf and stuff like that say like, I've never been in an atmosphere like this.
Where the pressure is different.
It's so interesting because you spend 10 hours watching all these teams all day long, and you can kind of get a sense of, who's maybe in that echelon that has a chance,
Sure.
And these are, let me say this, a lot of these teams are like, this is what they do. They scramble. It's the same 4 guys. They do this all the time. They take it very seriously. They get to the Derby and you break that scramble format and it's alternate shot.
Yeah.
So it switches on you a little bit. So you really get, those good teams and those good golfers, but you'll watch them play well all day and then they get into that Derby sometimes and they're shaking and they'll hit
They don't know how to approach it.
shot.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because of the pressure.
Well, and they're tired. They just played 7-8 hours.
But they have an absolute blast with it. And they're like, there's nothing like this, which is why we were hungry to, when Dad said, when he said, hey, we're thinking about doing a tournament, and he's like, well, you should just here. Like, I have this, bring it back. It would be so much fun. And he wanted to play in it, right? We were like, yeah, there's all these value propositions in this. We would love to do that. And so, like Cayden said, year 3 this year, we've been lucky enough to, the demand for it every single year has increased. The first year that we did it, we were obviously advertising it and doing all that kind of stuff, getting the word out. And it was right up to the tournament time where we filled it the first year. And we felt lucky enough to fill it. We're like, okay, cool. Fast forward to this year and like we're months out with a wait list now.
Yeah.
Like, it does it by itself, which makes us feel good that we've created something that people enjoy. We have a ton of repeat teams that come, which shows that they're having a good time. But it's an absolute blast, and we still use it as a networking tool.
Yeah,
like we did in the beginning to market ourselves,
reaching out to companies and saying, "Hey, we want to have you."
Totally,
exactly. Yeah, we say, "Hey, look at this value that we have. We'd love to get you involved." And we pick and choose who we chat with. We enjoy, obviously working with people that are enjoyable to work with, but also like we're people as well, and we have companies and brands and things that we resonate with and that we think are cool, and we love bringing them with us and showing them to our player base and furthering that connection that we have with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a cool concept. Something that we've touched on a little bit is tournament golf and the pressure that comes with tournament golf. And both of you played in high school. I played some amateur tournaments, tried to qualify for the state am a few times, and tournament golf is a different beast. But
totally.
That same pressure applies to business. And the way you told me that you guys started Wedge, I'm sure you felt that in a couple of different spots, like reaching out to a big client or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or, along those lines, or, you got a deadline coming up for a big somebody and you're trying to figure it out and you haven't quite figured it out yet. Do you have anything that you can share around that?
Oh, man. I think, at least from my perspective, like there's always been, and I think we're definitely past this a little bit now, but like that imposter syndrome of just like, we're kids out of college. We started this business, and
straight up when we first started, I'm not gonna say who, but we were young. I mean, we're still young, especially in the business world, but we were younger even, and we were like, hey, we can help you with this, do this. And they're like, good luck, kids.
Yeah, sure you could. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one individual specifically that literally told us like,
good luck.
I hope you'll last like the next month.
Jeez. We're like, thank you, sir.
How do you tune that out? I mean, like, how do you guys keep going?
I think with that guy specifically, like, we just knew that, the product we were offering was, I think, superior. Like,
sure.
I think that we talked a little bit about COVID kind of being a catalyst for a lot of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. The whole there was a whole new demographic of golf that opened up due to that.
Yeah.
That's not traditional. That's new. They maybe only been playing a couple years. They have different interests and backgrounds than maybe the traditional player did.
Right. And
some brands and some people have an easier time accepting that, and others are a little more old school.
Sure.
The individual that Cayden's referring to is a little more old school, and they're like, good, I've been in this industry X amount of years. Good luck, kids. And I think what got us through that, it hurt, and we're just sitting there like, what does this guy think? He's mad at the beginning, right?
Sure.
But then, a little bit later looking at it and going like, there's a change here, and we're kind of in that.
There's a change, and we were in it, and we knew what that change looked like.
Yeah.
Somebody that's been in the industry for 20, 30 years is going to be late to the game. They don't know what these new golfers.
And so we in that situation, we're kind of like, might be down the road, but they'll see.
Yeah.
Because it's here and it's coming.
Well, golf has always changed, and I'm involved with a tournament called the Varden Invitational, and it's a company called Varden Golf, and they go back to Harry Varden, who was the first guy to start hitting golf balls in the air, and everyone was like, "You're nuts," right? Back in the 1900s, and he was the first guy to wear knickers, and kind of change the style a little bit. And you've seen that throughout time with golf, with the PGA Tour coming along, and Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus. And
we did a lot of work with World Long Drive.
Yeah,
so we
long drive.
Talking about an extreme.
The question of like the bike purification with the golf balls and all that kind of stuff going on. And the one thing that is constant, and this is so faux pas, is change, right? Things are always going to continue to evolve. And if you're not willing to grow with it, then you're going to end up being in the background. And I think you guys have found a cool niche, and you're growing with the game. You're working with some really cool forward-thinking brands, which is super exciting. So I just want to wrap up with kind of what's next for Wedge, and where you guys see yourself in a couple of years here, and any exciting projects that you want to talk about.
I want a Cybertruck.
Yeah, we're all going to be driving Cybertruck.
Very friendly conversation. Let's not get polarized.
Yeah, no. I think, we've had actually 2024 has been an interesting year for us where we've talked about a lot of this stuff. I think what we realized is, one thing is you learn as you go, right? And so, we had some of that ad background, creative background, those things. But like running a business, the whole business side, like learn as you go, right? And so anybody that's in that space or trying to do something like that, like don't let it scare you. Just know that like nobody that started anything knew what they were doing when they started it. Yeah. And you figure it out as you go, and you get better as you go. This year it happened really fast for us, and we've been busy for a long time. We've been very fortunate. Haven't always had the time, I think, that we may have needed to kind of step back and look and say, where have we been? Where are we? Where do we want to go? How are we going to make that happen? Instead of just like get all the stuff done that we have on our docket, right? So being a little more meticulous about that.
This year we're saying no to more.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is essentially.
Well, I'm glad I got in before that.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out where we want to go, right? And looking at the business, I think we spend a lot of time with our clients, which we should, and that's fantastic. I don't think we've always treated our business like we treat our clients, if you will. And we've switched that a little bit this year and kind of talked amongst us and say, what are our life goals in the next X amount of years? What are our business goals in the next amount of years? How do we make those happen? And what do we do now to lay that foundation?
Yeah, well, your life goals are about to change. You're good. Do your pending nuptials this week.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah, there we go. Well, thanks for making time for this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then in August. So that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having us.
No, this is awesome. I appreciate you guys' friendship and everything. And even though on the business side of things, it's been awesome to work with you guys.
Same.
I'm excited
Likewise.
for what the future looks like, and all your help starting this and being part of the Wedge
100%.
network is awesome. So,
yeah, man.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.